our work right now on the planet is to bring honoring and sanctity to the invisible just as much as the visible. The invisible results are things like feeling good, things like feeling connected, things like our health, our well-being, a feeling of joy, pleasure.
Embodiment can't be faked. Once you're in an open state where you actually can see through a clear lens, you know, you're not clouded by fear, you're not clouded by the amygdala, you're not clouded by the society's news and all the fear-based stuff, and you're just with you. Then you get to decide where you think we actually are.
It is possible to navigate pain with grace.
Energy is information. We're here to experience the full spectrum.
That worthiness is hard for you. There's nothing wrong with you. It is a muscle that we kind of have to learn how to access. You are not disempowered, and you have power in every area of your life all the time.
I believe that chronic illness is an opportunity for us to heal.
Health, it's a choice. Listening to your body if you so choose.
My prayer for the world would be that they would know the infinite love of God.
Aloha and welcome to the Body and Soul Wisdom Podcast with your host, Jen Mons. Join me each week for soul-inspired, conscious conversations around awakening to your soul purpose through 5-element well-being. Thank you so much for joining in. Aloha and welcome back to the Body and Soul Wisdom Podcast. We are currently in week 7 of the 10-week prosperity experience, and I have just been loving all of the messages and support that you're sending me. Thank you so much for following along. I'm so happy that you're getting so much value out of this. Many of you have told me that you've had to listen to the same episode more than once because you're getting so much out of it and you're pausing and you're journaling, and it's just so awesome. I love to hear that you're being interactive and inspired to grow your relationship to money, because that's what we're doing in this 10-week experience. We believe in the community, the 5-element wealth community, that financial freedom is the 5th element to well-being. So we hear people talk about mind, body, soul, or mindset, physical health, and spiritual growth. And we also know that emotional well-being is important. And I really believe that we're in a time where if you're already on this path of investing in your well-being physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, then you are ready to receive and grow into the idea that financial freedom, which gives you choice and helps you to amplify your values in the world, is something that you're ready to heal as well. Because what I have found is that money is one of the 5 hardest things to talk about. Well, let's just say food is another one, which I've done. Sex, religion, politics, and money seem to be the 5 things that are pretty difficult for most people to talk about. And so I love bringing awareness to this because it's really insightful to explore the beliefs and the blocks and the behaviors and our money wellness and our money love language that also we create a sabotaging behavior around that might also show up in other areas of our life. So it's been pretty powerful experience. And so if you haven't been following along, this is week 7. I would invite you to go back, 7 episodes from when we began this journey. That was episode 156 with the 5 steps to create your prosperity roadmap. So that's really creating the framework for this experience, followed by awakening your money origin story and identifying your money saboteur. We share 7 different saboteurs in that episode and several different 6 areas where different blocks show up. Followed by the week after, which is creating your empowering money story. So once we identify the behaviors and the blocks and even just the things that we say that are keeping us from really receiving and living in true abundance, because money is really an energy that we receive to be resourced so that we can then go put something out into the world. That's why we get paid for the work that we do. We get paid for the value of service or product or experience that we provide. And so it's an energy exchange. And the week after that, after we create our empowering money story, then we move into attuning to the frequency of wealth, which is episode 159, really understanding the energetics of money and why it matters. And after that, we step into a conversation around the embodiment of receiving, because what we start to lean into and get curious about is that there's actually something underneath the surface in all of this, energetically, but also emotionally, physically, spiritually, and mentally, which is that a lot of times, especially in the community of women that I serve, which tends to be purpose-driven, high-achieving women, is that we have blocks to receiving. Even from the most simple thing like receiving a compliment, receiving support, receiving financial abundance, fully receiving a nourishing meal, and I've recorded a podcast on that, probably a couple years ago, about, just the conversation around, you can eat as healthy as you want, but if your body's in fight or flight, then energetically your body's not ready to receive and assimilate all the nutrients that it's receiving. And then last week we had the conversation around amplifying prosperity consciousness through your money love language. So we started to really unpack and see that there's a love language to money, because it's an energy, and it may or may not align with your love language in life to people. But it's really interesting to see, how have you ever gone on a money date? Have you ever done a completion letter around debt or shame around money? Have you ever had a conversation and actually gave it attention and intention to build a relationship with it? This is something that took me a really long time to do, because I really just ignored it. I really I had a couple of the different saboteurs. One of them being a martyr, of course, being in the industry of health and healing and coaching, but then another one, a little bit free spirit, where I just didn't want to budget it, didn't really want to connect and build with it until if you've heard me share my story, I entered a challenging business partnership that really, I financially entered a huge loss that really helped me want to grow my relationship with money, because it allows me to create space, amazing retreats and experiences for my clients, and also to give back into the community, to sponsor events and sponsor other women and even pay other women for their gifts and talents. And so for me, that's super rewarding. And it's the deeper why underneath. So that's why we have the conversation around amplifying prosperity consciousness through money love language, because I realized I wasn't, the physical touch love language, I wasn't spending enough time with it, or I wasn't giving it intention. So sometimes I'd have a large amount sitting in my bank account, and other times, as soon as I would get it, I would spend it. And I just didn't have that in the middle, which now I do have, and it feels really empowering and really amazing to be able to receive the fruits of my efforts, and also be able to put amazing things out into the world. I'm able to give from a place of being resourced. So that's really what we're talking about through money love language. And this week we are talking about alchemizing your worth to wealth. And I want to just say before we begin that the money you make has nothing to do with your worth. And so even though the title sounds a little bit like I'm saying that, because I'm saying your worth to wealth, it's really more about a feeling. It's about the feeling that you are unconsciously or subconsciously seeking out of a need, because there's a reason that you are here and curious about healing your relationship to money, because it's an energy that you can allow to serve you, to feed you, to nourish you in any way that you want. But the question is why and how. So what is that for you? Some people really like fancy cars. Some people really like material things, and I'm not judging that. There's nothing wrong with that. My love language happens to be quality time. So for me, it's really about continuing to provide that next level of experience in life. So in my own life, which I was just telling my husband the other day, like, I have no regrets, and that feels really, really good. Everything that I say I'm gonna do, I do or I've done. I've traveled the world. There's still some places I want to go, but I've been to 40 plus countries. I've hosted retreats. I've published a book. I know I'm going to publish several more. My girls are thriving. My health is really good. My marriage is amazing, and I just say that to say that, like, that's something that I've decided and I've chosen. I never choose to be in victim consciousness, despite the challenges that I've been through, which there have been many. I've had 2 health crises. I've had lots of betrayal, lots of loss, and I've been through some pretty challenging things. And I choose to allow those things to help me to grow and expand, because I believe they give me clarity on what I don't want. And so it's about a feeling. And for me, the feeling is life experience. And one thing, and I can't remember, there's a book, and I can't remember the book. If I remember it, I'll put it in the link in the show notes. But there's a book that's written on the 5 regrets. It might even be called that, the 5 regrets of people. And if I remember correctly, the number 1 regret people have when they die is that they didn't live their truth. And I just think, gosh, that would be tragic. I don't think there could be anything more tragic than that, to really be at that place in your life where, like, well, I really wanted to travel, but I didn't because I made excuses. Excuses that I didn't have the time or the money. And a lot about what we talk in our prosperity course is that really taking ownership that we are the source of time and money. And so I'm going to say this again because I've said it in a couple other podcasts, but maybe this is your first time listening to this, but really just being curious about, okay, so we all have the same 24 hours in a day. We get to choose what we do with them. And what I decided 5 years ago in 2017 is I would no longer say that I was too busy, because what it was really saying is I'm misaligned and I'm not aligned with my values. Because when I take ownership of my time through energy management, then I get to choose what to do with my time, and I would never feel too busy if I was doing something that I truly wanted to do. I decided to take the words "it's too expensive" out of the words or the sentence out of my vocabulary, because what that really means is that I don't see the value in it. So then I just say that because I know that I'm the source of money. So if there's something that I want, I know that there's a way for me to bring that in order to pay for it, because I've done it and I've led many women through doing that. So it's really shifting the mindset into, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this. Or a couple of other things I've heard is, I just don't have that type of disposable income to invest in myself, which makes me think, like, you're not disposable, you're a precious gift. To, how can I allow this to flow into my life so that I can be resourced in order to pay for this? It's a total mindset shift, super empowering. It's shifting from that limited mindset to the growth mindset of, okay, I see this is available. How am I going to make this happen? Versus I can't sensibly, reasonably see a way that this can happen, because sometimes there's nothing to figure out. That's one of the ways that we block ourselves. What did they say? Paralysis by analysis, because that can be a huge block for many of us. So alchemizing worth to wealth is really about how you want to feel. What is alchemy? Alchemy is a holistic transformation of your energetic imprint. So I don't know what the dictionary definition is at this moment, but I know that when people speak of the words alchemy, I think sometimes people refer to it as maybe being magical. And I guess from my perspective, coaching women for many, many years, it appears that way from the outside, because when you're ready, and I've just seen it happen so many times, when women are really ready to just make that shift in their life, then the magic does unfold, because you're saying yes to yourself, and then you're supported by God, by the universe, because you look through the lens of your life differently. You see what is available and what is working versus what is not working. It's a total shift. It provides so much freedom, and it's a really fun place to live because it's from a place of thriving rather than surviving. And I didn't get here because I've always been thriving. You don't learn that thriving is important if you've always had it. So I just want to say to the people out there that are thinking, well, it's been easy for you. You don't know somebody else's journey unless you've been in it. And I have shared many, many times the many challenges that I have been through. You don't step into your queendom just magically. There's no magical manifestation. Everything is about alignment and intention. So if you've been hearing, and I've been deep into spiritual communities, but if you're in that space of hearing that there's some magical method, there's not. Okay? Like, be very, very wary and curious of those people, or of, I guess, that messaging, because we are human and soul together, and so we don't grow if we don't get clarity about what doesn't work and what works. If we don't step through the space of expansion and contraction, it's just that's just not reality. So we're talking about alchemy, which is, think of it as transformation of energy, which again, money is an energy. It's the integration week for what we've been talking about leading up to this. The attuning, the aligning, the attracting, which leads to amplifying. So if you're totally new to this conversation, I would invite you to check out my Soul Wisdom Imprinting course. It's a mini course or method that I created through 6 steps that will help you really transform any area of your life through this 6-step process. The first step, and I'm sharing this with you because it relates directly to this prosperity experience that we're in. The first step is to awaken. So it's really bringing that curious insight and awareness and healthy mindset, growth mindset to the opportunities. It's like opening your mind and expanding a little bit. We begin to bring our intention on what is working and the possibilities versus what hasn't been working, which so many people are stuck in. I see it all the time. I meet people, I think that somebody might be a really great potential client, and then, some people, they're just not ready. Like, they're just so stuck spinning in cycles of indecision and procrastination and chaos and overdoing and busyness and overwhelm that they just can't see the way out. Even when the teacher appears, they just prefer to stay. They're just choosing at that time to just stay in that spot. So the first step is to awaken. The second step is to align. And this is really the conversation around energy management over time management. So it's really a deep excavation of, how have I been living my life through the constraints of time and overwhelm and busyness? And what would it look like if I chose to live in energy management and energy alignment? Because this is like one of the most life shifting perspectives, in my opinion, that you will ever have the opportunity to embody or embrace, is energy alignment. Really letting go of the hustle, the overwhelm, the busyness, and understanding that that's a perception that you've created. It's usually a survivor strategy. Sometimes it's glamorous. Maybe you're making great money. However, your marriage is failing, or your kids say that you never listen, or your health is failing, or something's out of alignment because you've got your values misaligned. You're spending time that is not aligned with your values, and that would be misalignment. That's what happens when you say you're too busy. So awaken, align, and then the third step is attunement. And attunement, again, is going into, like, what are those sabotaging behaviors? Some people call them limiting beliefs, some people call them wounds, call them whatever you want, but it's that pattern that just keeps showing up again and again because you haven't figured it out yet. And the beautiful thing is that once you create awareness out of it and you create energetic alignment in your life to be resourced enough to move through it, I think the challenging thing is people are so deeply spinning in circles of chaos that they can't even see the way out, which is why it's important to start choosing alignment first to resource yourself nutritionally with food, movement, through the 5 elements of wealth. So with your healthy mindset, your physical body, which I call body wisdom, through nutrition and movement, your emotional space, which I really like to call emotional freedom now. I used to call it emotional empowerment, but emotional freedom is just like next level, like emotional well-being, in my opinion. Your spiritual growth, and then the financial piece. So aligning these 5 elements of your well-being so that you can be resourced, supporting yourself, creating small habits, which I will share that I have a 365-day journal that takes you through your relationship to all of these elements of your well-being. There's a different theme every single month. It's called the 13 Moons of Daily Devotion because there's 13 moons in a year. And there's also an invitation there for you to go a little bit deeper and reflect monthly with some moon ceremonies. You can find that on Amazon. So that would be a very gentle way to facilitate healing in all of those areas. Awaken is the first step. Align, attune through shadow work, really getting clear on your needs and your sabotaging behaviors, which of course we talk about over and over again, is really just a product of strategies that you created in your childhood to protect you in some way. Everybody goes through that. And the 4th element is once you clear the junk, it's kind of like detoxing if you think of your physical health. Once you detox your body of the sugar, the yeast, the candida, the toxins, the free radicals, then you start to feel better. So that's when we step into the 4th step of the soul wisdom imprinting, which is attraction, where you become the lighthouse. So you stand firmly in clarity because you have strength, you feel resourced, and you begin to attract experiences from your new perspective. Your soul really truly puts messages out there to help you attract things to help you learn and grow. Those might feel painful, but when you have this perception, this outlook, you know that those experiences give you clarity and end up helping you expand into more of who you're becoming on the other end. And so it's all positive. And you begin to attract the teachers, the love into your life. This is what part of what I love about what I do is when I start working with women. I used to work with them for a year. Now I usually do 6 months. And just watching women let go of toxic relationships and then all of a sudden welcome in their soulmate is so awesome because they are just so much happier. Letting go of toxic jobs and then somehow attracting their dream job with the pay that they wanted or 3 or 4 times their pay. I'm not a love coach. I'm not a money coach. I'm a life coach. And when you do the inner work, whatever it is that you truly desire is what you begin to attract when you go through this process. After we attract, we begin to amplify. Our life begins to amplify. Just like last week, we talked about amplifying prosperity consciousness. We amplify life experiences through joy. We start to choose that I want the experiences that bring me joy. I'm no longer willing to be available for XYZ. I'm no longer available for toxic coworkers, not being paid my worth, crappy relationships, the lack of emotional integrity from the people around me, projection, narcissism, rejection, abandonment, whatever, you decide. And then lastly, once we go through awaken, align, attune, attract, and amplify, we get to the alchemy. And that's really where all of our survivor strategies and our sabotaging behaviors turn into our gifts, and we get to lead life from our gifts, not our wounds, not our survivor strategies, not the things that people did, not the beliefs that are holding us back. Okay, yeah, I'm getting a little excited, as you can tell, because this 6-step method, the Soul Wisdom Imprinting, will drop the link, can be used. It's $40. It's a mini course in any area of your life. And so now we're applying it to our relationship with money. Alchemizing our relationship to money to own our worth, which is really more about the embodiment, the integration of how we want to feel, and transmuting that into something tangible, which is the energy of money, and being clear on why do you even want that. And the number one thing I hear from people is freedom, because it's choice. You get to amplify every part of your 5-element well-being. You get to invest in your physical health with nutrients and superfoods and adaptogens and organic food and totally amazing, yummy, delicious foods that are up-leveling your health. You get to invest in experiences that feed your soul and your emotional well-being. You get to invest in support that helps you to work through that stuff so that you can truly show up in life the way that you want to, not just for yourself, but for your family, for your children, for your spouse, for your coworkers, for your community. You really start to just take ownership that your personal healing is so much bigger than you, because it creates this ripple effect, this impact that just keeps radiating out. And that feels really good. I feel like, especially, I'm a mother of a 16 and almost 14-year-old, and I think many mothers would agree, or even if you're a leader of an executive group or you have that sort of energy where you manage or care or lead people, you just realize that it's just super important to lead by example and just really embody the example that you want for people. So when we work through the integration of the attuning, the aligning, the attraction, the attracting and amplifying our wealth frequency, we step into an expanded space of energy. And as we step into the space, just like any other experience that we go through, we may feel expansions and contractions. So this week is really, again, amplifying that energy of embodiment. We talked about the embodiment of receiving, and also stepping into balanced energetic alignment of the energies of prosperity, abundance, and wealth. Because although they all have variations of money and receiving in all of them: prosperity, abundance, and wealth. So that's really what alchemizing your worth to wealth is. It's about being integrated. It's about being embodied. It's about being resourced. This has like been my favorite word for months. We've been talking about it in our prosperity group. And the energy of being resourced is just like that, like, just receiving breath, receiving water, receiving love, receiving support, so that you can grow and nourish and prosper and create. It's a beautiful energy to be in. And that feeling of being resourced and grounded, integrated, and embodied, like a tree. I have a tree with the 5 elements of well-being in my prosperity course to create the image of what happens when we thrive from the ground up, from the inside out. And so what we are going to talk about and expand a little bit more into this week is your physical and spiritual gifts and talents, and really just understanding, again, sort of at the next level, like, what does it mean to fully own myself, my soul, my gifts? I believe that each of us were created to be wonderful, uniquely a part of the integration, the web of consciousness that we're living in. And we all have something to offer. I believe and my work supports women, and of course I believe this equally with men and women. I speak to women because that's who I work with, and I believe that every single woman has an amazing gift inside her, probably, and I know more than one. But I know that there's this one that is like what you came here to do. And and it doesn't have to be this big thing. It can be a characteristic. It can be the way that you show up in your work. It can be the way that you express joy, which brings joy to other people. I think we get caught up in our head that it means that we have to create this like empire or something like that. And it doesn't, or even business. And for many women that are really in that energy of creative life force energy and leadership, it might mean creating a business for you. For others, it might mean writing a book or creating an experience. And for others, it's the presence. Well, for all of us, it's our presence of really just who we are, not what we do. So this space that we're going to move into is really about welcoming clarity on how can I live and lead my life from my gifts and not my survivor strategies, not my wounds, not the saboteurs that we talked about a couple of weeks ago around your money origin story. Maybe the question is, what collective wound am I carrying? Am I in a space where I hear myself say something negative out of scarcity or fear or lack of trust? Because there's plenty of opportunity to have those conversations these days. Lack of trust in organizations or government or other people. Scarcity around money. We've been in inflation post-pandemic. Some people would say it's not affecting everybody in the same way, though, just like the pandemic didn't affect everybody in the same way. So ask the question when you see that, like, how are those people having a different experience? Because they've already worked through different things that are allowing them to have a different experience. And so just getting clear on what shadow work in myself might be left to uncover that. What is shadow work? For those of you that are new, it's I want to say the dark, right? The shadow. It's the part that we cover that hides our light within us, that we keep hidden, that we disown, or that we reject. The parts that we don't want seen because we carry shame or regret around. Maybe the way that we have shown up or behaved, or maybe something that happened to us. Maybe something even related to money. Now, of course, I have to full disclaim I'm not a therapist. And so if this is something that really triggers you into a trauma response, then, well, this may not be the space for you, because coaches really help you to move forward, although we can witness that space. But if you need deeper help and you become dysregulated in that space, then you probably need extra support. But most of us are just in that space of frustration because we're not actually living in alignment to the way that we really actually truly want to. We're not showing up in the way that we want to because of little mindset beliefs and survivor strategies that we've created because of something from the past. And it's the parts of us that we keep hidden, we disown, or we reject within us. When the true alchemy is when you embrace those shadow parts, because that's where the gift actually is. because you've been hiding it from a place of fear. And when you take ownership and you embrace and you transmute that energy, there's nothing to fear anymore. And there's what's on the other side of that is freedom, which is a really awesome feeling. So I'm going to give you a couple of questions just to, this is a deeper level. Like, where in my life do I know that I'm holding myself back? What area of my life am I holding myself back? You probably feel it in your body. Where do I feel it? What does it feel like when I know I'm holding myself back? Is it in my marriage, my relationship, in my work? Is it the thing I really want to do, like write a book or career change, move to a different place, maybe travel? What is the thing I want to do that I'm not doing, and I keep holding myself back? And how does this make me feel? And what do I want? And how do I want to feel? So answer those questions. That's clearing the shadow work again that we've done. We're just doing it again. And the alchemy is when we really start to own our gifts and talents. So the invitation for you is to grab a journal if you don't have one already. And I'm going to invite you to make a list. You'll probably do this after the podcast, but make a list of your skills, your unique skills. So a skill would be something that like you're good at, you've probably been trained at. You may or may not enjoy it. It could be something like for me, for example, a skill that I have that comes really easy to me is math. So math, like Excel sheets, is a skill that I have. It's just, it doesn't really define me. I don't really use it. It's just kind of something that I recognize that everybody has that skill to do that. I have quite a few skills that don't really mean anything that I've been trained in because I was a former engineer, but they could be anything that you've been trained in that you're just, it could be, I guess cooking could be a skill or it could be a talent. Kind of just depends on like what that experience is for you. Next would be a talents. Like make a list of your talents, unique talents, nothing too small. So again, something you learned, but as you were learning it, you noticed there was joy in it and it came easily to you. So a skill doesn't necessarily come easily. It's just something that you've acquired. A talent is something that came easy for you. So it could be dance or playing an instrument or teaching, speaking. For some of you, maybe speaking is more of a skill because it doesn't feel easy, but for some of you, you're just like a natural. Some of you are natural leaders. So what are my talents? Maybe it's baking. Maybe you have a knack for baking without recipes and you're super creative. Maybe you're artistic. You have you knit, you sew, you garden. Maybe you're really good at some type of sport. Swimming, running, it just comes easy for you. Next is make a list of your certifications. Just make a list, and I'm willing to bet that many of the listeners here, at least I know many of the women in my community, are over-certified, overtrained, just like myself. But all of this matters because it shows you your blueprint of your life and the space that you take up. It's like all the different roots beneath the tree. So make a list of your unique certifications. Yoga teacher, leadership teacher, firefighter, welder. These are some that I have that are just all over the place, right? Like it could be anything financial. Maybe you have some financial certification or you're a therapist or a teacher. Maybe you have some type of health certification, different levels of that, detoxification, herbal medicine. Just list them all because it shows you your roadmap, the life that you lived, and your values. The next question is, what are your values? Make a list of your top 5 values and what they mean to you and why they're important to you. You're probably going to find that some of them are very similar. So for example, you might have something like family, community, and connection, and those could all really be the same. Or maybe they're not for you, but it's really, again, about how you want to feel, which is, you could probably simplify that into connection. And then you may choose to connect through family and community. You could say health, which could include emotional, mental, spiritual, and financial health. You could say adventure, which could include joy and travel. So condense it to 5 words, knowing that your one word could mean a couple of different things. Okay, so what we've done today is, again, we're sort of stepping into, what do I know I'm holding myself back in life? Because that's probably there's several words for it: the limiting belief, the fear, the block, the core wound, the survivor strategy, whatever you want to call it. This is the thing that you're meant to transmute and work through. But what is it? How does it show up? What is it keeping me from doing? How do I feel? How is this impacting relationships in my life? Are there any relationships in my life that need healing because of this? I mean, you could go pretty deep on this. And then just getting clear, like, where am I at around this? Am I willing and ready to create change? Or am I not ready? Do I think I'm ready, but I'm not willing to be resourceful to find a way? Because if you're really ready, then you're willing to be resourceful to find a way with time and money and support to make it happen. But if you're not ready, you're not willing to be resourceful. And how would I like to show up? What am I learning about myself through this process? Looking at the list of gifts, talents, skills, and certifications and values, how am I aligning? When I think about my survivor strategies and blocks, and I think about my skills, gifts, talents, what lights me up? And where do I fall between these two? Am I living more as the person who's in survival mode? Or am I living more of aligned to the person I want to become, into my values? And maybe asking, what gifts and talents and skills do I have that I enjoy, that make it easy to continue expanding forward? What gifts do I want to bring in the world? What am I stand for? What is my personal truth, right? Those are kind of different variations of the first question. And so one of those will probably land for you. And so I've given you a lot of homework. Alchemizing your worth to wealth is really getting clear on, how am I showing up in ways that are no longer serving me? And how do I feel about it? And just, again, peeling the layers and then shifting to, who do I want to be? And really owning, like, I'm an awesome person. I have all these gifts, talents. I've had all these experiences that I forgot about because I don't celebrate myself enough. But now I'm ready to. So I'm going to write all these down. And how can the fruits of my efforts be received? My gifts and talents, how can they be utilized in the world with ease and flow, so that I can receive financial abundance and support and feel resourced, while also being in joy? Like, enjoy of the process. And just to take it up one more level for those of you that are really ready to expand a little more in that deeper level of conversation, if you're still journaling around this. Now remember, some of these journal prompts are in my 13 Moons of Daily Devotion journal, which we'll drop the link in the show notes. It's available on Amazon. I'm also in the process of creating the 90-day prosperity journal, specifically related to this prosperity experience, so that you can have a hard copy to really commit the intention of the 90 days to once and for all really heal your relationship to money, because there's so much freedom in it. There's so much freedom in being able to never hear yourself say, I can't do that because I don't have the money. That's like super awesome. It's freedom. Not to limit yourself because you believe that in scarcity. So a couple other questions I want to give to you for those of you ready to expand a little deeper is, what am I no longer available for? So when you think about the wounds, the survivor strategies, if you're not clear on that, then go back to the episode. There's several episodes you could listen to, but if we're just talking about your relationship to money, it's the one about your saboteur and your money origin story. But I've also recorded several podcasts on top 5 limiting beliefs that could be super helpful as well. So I will ask my producer to find that episode and drop that in the show notes for you if you're new to the conversation around shadow work and limiting beliefs. But what am I no longer available for? Maybe we just decide in 2023. I just created a new list. I think the list always changes. I love to use the moon cycles for this. The new moon is really about intention. The full moon is about releasing. And so, I don't know if you guys are into this. This is what I do, but every new moon I reflect, create an intention. Every full moon I release. I look back and I'm like, what did I do that was out of alignment? And it's really easy for me to identify because I've been doing it for a couple of years, and it feels really good to be like, okay, I no longer choose this. Like, I'm just not willing to be available for people's lack of emotional integrity, meaning they project and blame. Like, it's okay, they can do that, but I'm just not available energetically. I'm not available for, clients who aren't ready to work for me. Not available for indecision. That type of thing was one of the ones that I've worked through recently. What am I no longer available for moving forward? And let's just go financially, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically, if we want to dive deeper, the 5 elements of wealth. And what am I ready for? What am I ready? What am I ready to receive? What am I ready for financially, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically? What comes easily to me that I enjoy and could do forever? Clearly, one of mine is some related to this podcast. It's very easy for me to create content. It's, a podcast. There's so many people that don't have content for their podcast. They're just looking for ideas. And one of the things I can do easily is write and create and lead and speak and host retreats. And, so those are the things I do because they're enjoyable. Where are my gifts and talents best used? Am I a good listener? Do I have a talent around music? How can the fruits of my efforts be received by others? So if you have something you're really good at, you can get paid for it. That comes easily to you and that brings you joy. Maybe it's painting, writing a book. I have quite a few women that I'm working with that have always wanted to write a book, and they've started that process because they've always had that creative flow. They just didn't know what to do with it. Or, creating something. Many women have a lot of creative energy that has been suppressed, that a lot of times we discover when we work together. It's super fun to be like, oh yeah, I really loved doing this when I was little. So how can the fruits of my efforts be received? How can I work smarter, not harder? So maybe even think about in the workplace, right? Like the corporate workplace. I've supported quite a few high-level executive women in their job leadership roles, of course, many of them in masculine-dominated leadership positions, around creating new styles of leadership in their work environment. I mean, we're talking bringing in meditation, bringing in just a different way of communicating, or more flow into the structure at the workplace. Just a totally different, more vulnerability and connection, more trust, rather than, what so many of us are used to, just grinding with our nose and head down to get results. Productivity, I think, is, I can remember when I worked corporate, like everything was focused on productivity. Well, productivity is a lot higher when people feel happy. So how can I work smarter, not harder, and bring in my natural gifts and talents into the world, into the work I do, into my home, into my community, into my daily life? Maybe it's just simply journaling or moving or dancing or creating a smoothie every day, or playing the drums or the flute for 5 minutes a day, or piano, just for that simple connection of joy. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope that you are enjoying this 10-week prosperity experience. This is week 7. We have 3 more weeks. Next week, we're going to talk about allowing your passion to create prosperity. So we're going to expand on the conversation from today. The week after, we're going to invite the conversation around living a legacy of generational wealth. And just that idea that someday you're going to be somebody's ancestor, which is kind of a super cool thought. What would you say to your granddaughter's granddaughter? What shift do you want to be a part of? And it can just be a simple family thing. Like, it can be breaking alcoholism. I'm not saying that's simple, but I'm saying it doesn't have to be creating some big company, but maybe it's, breaking karmic patterns within your family of divorce, or, some really painful things that we go through and we see repeat. And of course, week 10 is going to be the integration and celebration and being in the energy of gratitude, which is super fun. Thank you so much for joining in. I look forward to having another conversation around this next week. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Aloha.
The content of this podcast is to educate, inspire, and inform you of pathways to an embodied healing self. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice from your medical doctor, therapist, registered dietitian, or nutritionist for any questions you may have regarding your diagnosis or condition.
Hello, friends, and thank you so much for joining again each week on the Body and Soul Wisdom podcast. I am so deeply honored to share this space with you every week. I know that there are many other podcasts that you could be tuning into, and our community is expanding and growing more with each new episode. I'd like to invite you to come on over to jenmons.com/tribe and receive some of the wonderful gifts that we have for you: a meditation bundle, energetic alignment, 5-element wealth, prosperity consciousness. We have a ton of different gifts available for you to enjoy. Now, we have one small favor to ask. In order for this podcast to get into the hearts and souls of like and light-minded people, we need your support. We would love your review, and would love it if you'd head on over to jenmons.com/podcast to leave a review or leave one on iTunes, so that we can continue to share the love beyond out into the world. Thank you so much again for joining in. We'll see you next week.